Welcome back to the Red Ones Go Fast. Old Big Mek here, and yes, in this video we are talking about Battlefleet Gothic, the long-lost, amazing game from Games Workshop that really should be remade. In fact, I actually did an entire video on why I really love this game, and it's like the best specialist game, which I'll put a link to up here somewhere. But what we are doing today is actually building our orc fleet. Now, I feel very fortunate to even have these. BFG stuff has absolutely held its value over the years, and frankly, it goes for an insane amount of money, and, you know, a combination of good luck, timing, having some things from back in the day when they were new, stuff like that. I have a very, very small fleet, which I'm looking forward to putting together. So I've got some Onslaught attack ships. There are 3 of them there. Some Savage gunships, 3 of them there. Some Brute ram ships, 3 of them there. And then this old thing of Ravager attack ships that is new in the box. And yeah, that is my fleet. Those of you that do BFG probably recognize these are all escorts. For those of you that don't know what that is, let me show you in the rulebook. So these are escorts. Here are some of the ones that I have, the Savage gunship and the Ravager attack ship. You'll see right here, it says escort is the type, and it is 1 hit. So in 1 hit, they go kaboom boom, and they've got their armor and stuff on them, and they are really cool. What they are not, however, is a capital ship. Escort ships are your small, little ships that are supposed to be deployed in squadrons that have great maneuverability, but they don't have a whole lot of firepower, and they don't have a whole lot of survivability. For that, you need to get into capital ships like cruisers. The problem with this is I don't own a Kill Kroozer. So what's a Big Mek to do? Well, the answer is simple. Just like we do for Warhammer 40,000, we kitbash one. We make one ourselves out of a bunch of scraps and gubbins and whatnot. And thankfully, the orc design process for ships is pretty forgiving. Here are some full color pictures of some orc ships, and you can see there's kind of a pseudo-looking face thing on the prow, and otherwise, that's about it. There's not great big sails like the Eldar have, or flying buttress cathedral things like the Imperial fleet and the Chaos fleet and whatnot. In fact, here in the showcase, they even show you a scratch-built orc space Hulk, just made of absolute randomness and garbage that I love dearly, and we will definitely be making one of those someday. But right now what we need is a capital ship. We need some sort of a Kill Kroozer to lead all of these escorts to represent the fleet that takes my 40k WAAAAAAAGH from planet to planet. So what I've done is I have combed through my bits for a selection of things that looked kind of spaceshipy. What I ruled out was anything that had leather on it, or wrapping or ties, such as the arm here on the Shooter Boy. You see how it's got this almost tourniquet looking thing on it. I didn't want anything like that in the weapons, and I looked for things that could be scaled differently. The pipes on this obviously aren't very good for BFG, nor is that light. But this side piece here, where we've got these like 5 little indents and these 3 buttons and whatnot, that is actually a pretty good basis for a hull. Same thing with this. I would scrape off the lightning bolt, but the actual boxes and round thing at the back are pretty good. Now, one thing that you'll notice is not here is some sort of face, something that looks like it would be the prow of the ship in the right size. We just don't seem to have that bit. There is this little guy. He is the grot that comes in the Warbiker kit that has a little face on it, but 1, there's a pole on the side, and 2, it's really skinny. Now, digging through my bits, I did find a couple of candidates, including this shoulder pad from the Beastnaga set. Beastnagas popularly are mischaracterized as being just snake bites and Old World Boys or Age of Sigmar. Totally not true. They are absolutely covered in mechanical parts, including their decorations. And yeah, this one is very much a metal mask, and it's of about the right size to use for maybe a large escort ship or a like light cruiser. So yeah, we've got that, and we've got a couple of random pieces like this, maybe to build a lower jaw. I really wish I had a second one of these. and I can make some teeth, and yeah, that one would be really good. But that was unfortunately the only one I found. But this is what I've got to start with, so let's see what kind of cruiser we can come up with. Alright, sit rep. I've been working on this cruiser for the better part of an hour now, and I'm not real happy with the first attempt, so I started a second one. Let me show you. So here is our fleet. We've got kind of the littlest ones there, the brute ram ships. Got the other ones laid out here just to kind of get an idea of size. I needed to get bigger than them, and this is what I started creating. I've got, an engine at the back. I've got kind of a hull. I've got a prow gun with the little head on it there that we were talking about. But yeah, it's not very spaceshipy looking. It looks a lot like 40K bits glued together. I think the problem is the detailing on this. Even the really small stuff is way, way bigger than the detailing on this. In fact, I think the smart way to go about this isn't to use any kind of 40K bits at all, but would actually be to pick up some old Aeronautica Imperialis kits. That's the flying game about the fighters and bombers and things like that got discontinued and now is part of the Horus Heresy Adeptus Titanicus thing, which means all of the factions that aren't Imperial or Chaos got dropped. So the Orks don't exist anymore, neither do the Eldar or the Dark Eldar, all those. But that means you could pick up the Ork kits, the Fight-A-Bombas and Burn-A-Bombas and whatnot, like pretty darn cheap. I would think that them being on a much smaller scale, they're the 10 or 15 millimeter epic scale, would be a lot more in line with the fine detailing on the Battlefleet Gothic ships. So that's the smart money. But not to be deterred, here's what I started with again. I decided I needed a much more simple, solid hull that was a little bit more appropriately sized. So I've got this little guy right here, and then this little frontal piece here that has some pretty good fine detailing in it. And I started kind of gathering some pieces, and I think I'm going to try building that one and maybe abandon efforts on this one for now. We can always come back to that project later. All right, now we seem to be getting somewhere a little better. We've got like a main body with a kind of piece going down below, a piece up top, some side pieces. And yeah, it's looking a bit like an orc craft, and it's even pretty reasonably sized. So yeah, getting bits that have smaller details on them is definitely helping, though still overall way too clean to be anything Battlefleet Gothic. And I think that's the rub about this and why BFG stuff holds its value so much, is it was really, really difficult, exceptionally so, to scratch build or kitbash anything for BFG and actually have it look the part. Now, there's a lot of 3D printing out there, or at least there was until Shapeways closed down. But you can find on eBay, Etsy, things like that, some 3D printed options for BFG, and they do look quite nice. Most of them are Imperial or Chaos, not a whole lot out there for Orcs or anything like that. And by all means, I'm definitely going to be looking into some of those. But what I really wanted, I just wanted to be able to put together a cruiser, some sort of HQ ship for my orcs to fight with, and yeah, the bits just aren't doing it for me. The whole inspiration for this is online. I saw somebody make an entire Tau fleet out of Tau parts, and it really got me thinking, how did they do that? How did their fleet actually pull it off? And really looking at it showed me why. One, Tau ships have a lot of big smooth areas on them in BFG, just like their armor plating in a 40K. So there's not as much detailed gubbins. And also, Tau bits have a lot more really finely detailed little gubbins areas on them than Orcs do. The Orc stuff is very much made to look, chopped up, welded together, that kind of stuff, versus Tau being high technology. That's why kind of the bit on the bridge of this one is actually a Leagues of Votann bit, because it's got those smaller details like the Tau stuff. So really you have to look outside the Orcs to get any kind of bits that have the right amount of detail in the right scale. And here's a good example of what I'm talking about. This giant bit here on the bottom, this kind of W looking piece with the rivets on it, this is from the Ork truck. And you look at the size of the rivets on that and the size of the gaps in the panels. This bit right here is from an Adeptus Mechanicus kit, and you can see the rivets are significantly smaller and the gaps are significantly smaller. And this is part of what makes the 40K aesthetic work, is that you do have different levels of technology at play that are very easy to see with the naked eye. The problem becomes trying to scale that down to this size. I mean, this entire ship fits inside this bit, basically. It's just kind of bananas. So really, to get anything finely detailed enough to work for this, it wouldn't come from 40K. And that, I think, is something I can live with for now. Take a look at my budding orc fleet. I've got my brute ram ships here and my two of my 3 sets of escorts. I haven't yet pulled the Ravagers out and built those. Yeah, but here is my attempt at a cruiser. So yeah, I ended up trying to find as many tiny little fiddly bits as I could, like this little guy right here, and this one back here, to look like, kind of some force field things for the orcs. Put a little, embellishment there as well. Really trying to do my best to put as many tiny details as I can. Have some exhaust pipes there on the side. And yeah, just kind of made something. Is it the best looking? No, especially not without paint on it. But once you put it out in the fleet and zoom out a bit, it's not that bad. And it's certainly a sight better looking than this contraption that I was coming up with. It's frankly too long, too skinny, and too asymmetrical to actually look good. Alright, so what have we learned in this episode? Well, scratch building for not 40K scale is really hard. I can imagine trying to scratch build some Titans for Titanicus or tanks for Epic or something like that would be just as difficult. The scaling differences on the bits are just too much to really get it to work for most things. I mean, I was literally pouring through all of my bits for the smallest, tiniest things I could and just not getting down granularly enough to have something that works. So like I said, I think if you are going to go down this route, I would try to find some old Adeptus and Aeronauticus kits and see what you can do to kitbash out of those. I'd imagine taking a fighter bomber that's an epic scale and trying to make it look like a spaceship is going to be a heck of a lot easier than taking, a las cannon and a bunch of random parts and putting them together. And that's kind of some of the lessons that I've learned. One is, it's really hard to do symmetrical things, and that is something that is much, much harder doing Battlefleet Gothic than anything else. Your regular 40K stuff really isn't symmetric if you think about it. I mean, yes, there's left arm, left leg, right leg, but they don't stand in the same pose, right? You don't have two arms literally identical, or mirror image of each other. That just looks dumb. So you are going to have different arms, different poses, different legs, because that's what's dynamic, that's what works. But when you're doing a vehicle, especially something like a spaceship, it's gonna be the same on both sides, and not having symmetrical bits that work on both sides definitely stands out. I think another thing that I've learned is, as much as I love metal minis and have a nostalgia for them, and obviously have quite a bit in my 40K collection, as you guys saw my tank bustas yesterday, there is a darn sight difference between a metal mini that you can pin to a base and you're done with, and those fiddly little metal spaceships. I was definitely going back in nostalgia, trying to get those things together, to stay together, and to actually work on those stupid flying stands, and remembering, oh yeah, this is part of why this game died, is the metal ships are just so top heavy and those flight stands are so bad, and trying to glue things together in a way that the stand still goes in there correctly is extremely difficult. There's a reason why everybody wants the plastic Imperial cruisers and the plastic Chaos cruisers, because they're the only ones that are plastic and they just stay on the stands very, very nicely. None of the metal stuff does. In fact, I distinctly remember the battleships in particular, the really big ones, having a ton of problems with falling over, breaking stands, just not really working well, especially the Space Marine ones, because they were like really wide too. Yeah, it's just as much nostalgia as I have for this game, and as cool as it was when it was out, and as much as I love the figures, building them is definitely a step back compared to where we are today. And yeah, it's been interesting. So yeah, now that I'm more aware of these limitations with the bits and whatnot, yeah, I don't know that I would necessarily attempt to scratch build any more Battlefleet Gothic things, at least not anything ship size like this. I think doing, you know, a Space Hulk, which is not going to be symmetrical, or, you know, an Ork Rock to attack things with, or, you know, maybe a space station or something like that, or some tiny little system monitor ships that are going to be really, really small, boarding torpedoes or something like that, would be worthwhile. But yeah, these bigger ships, they're really going to take something very different than the kind of scratch building that I've been used to. All right, that's going to do it for this episode. I hope you have enjoyed what you've seen. If you're a BFG player, definitely throw some comments down below. Give me some ideas on what to do here. Are there some 3D prints that I should know about? Are there some bits packs? Have you converted anything? What did you use for your conversions? I'd really love to make this fleet more like a fleet instead of 4 squadrons of escort ships, which is what I've got right now, because I really do have a love and a passion for this game, and I'd love to have a fleet that represents my Ork army so I can fly them from planet to planet and do a whole big narrative thing. All right, I've got to get back to work making more videos, because as you know, it's ORKTOBER and I'm doing one every single day. So I'll catch you tomorrow, and until then, WAAAAAAAAAAGH!